Crooks, including one user who wrote this: "You were on YouTube threatening to shoot government officials. I sure hope the FBI is monitoring social media for violent nutcases." That exchange is still available on Internet Archive websites. But the FBI didn't see that before the shooting? That's hard to believe. On various occasions, Crooks openly said things like, Mueller should be hanged along with the rest of the Democrats involved in that witch hunt, and I always believed being patriotic was lining up a bunch of socialist Jews, like the ones who booed Trump, and blasting their useless brains out with an AR. And yet, in early 2020, Crooks seemed to change radically. On January 23rd of that year, he referred to, quote, Trump's stupidity. He began to mock the concept of the deep state. He suggested it was a code word used by Trump supporters for, quote, anyone who disagrees with the right wing. Suddenly, he sounded like an MSNBC commentator. In February of 2020, he called out Trump supporters as, quote, too brainwashed to realize how dumb you are. I mean, literally, you guys sound like a cult at times. That same day, he called Trump and his supporters, quote, racist. It was an amazing transformation.
So the next topic I want to talk about is Thomas Crooks and Tucker Carlson. Yesterday, Tucker Carlson released sort of a mini, not documentary, but a mini breakdown of new information we have on Thomas Crooks. You know, for those who don't remember, the FBI had said back when the Biden administration was still in charge, right after Trump had been shot, that Thomas Crooks, the would-be assassin, who almost killed Trump, he grazed his ear, obviously, that Thomas Crooks, they said, had no real online presence. Now, that was weird because, you know, he's like, what was he, 19, 20, 21 years old? That's sort of unusual for a person at that age not to have a real online presence. I mean, for people in their 20s or teenage years, online is like just how the world is for them. That's how they grew up. So the fact that the FBI was claiming that he didn't have any, seemingly no online presence, that was very strange. And then you had people in the Biden administration claiming, well, maybe we found one or two things that he said that was like anti-immigrant, you know, basically almost implying that he was a right-winger. And then you had Christopher Wray, the former FBI director, who Trump appointed, by the way, who was a disaster. You know, he was testifying in front of Congress, and he implied that Trump maybe wasn't shot, that maybe it was shrapnel that hit Trump's ear. The whole point is, the Biden administration, they weren't being helpful when it came to finding out what exactly happened with this Thomas Crooks fella. And the theory was, well, when Trump gets back into office, you know, he's going to put Kash Patel in, who helped expose Russiagate, Dan Bongino, who's a firebrand, loyal Trump supporter. They're going to uncover what the hell exactly happened. How the hell did some weird teenage nerd, how was he able to get onto a roof and get several clean shots at the overwhelming favorite to be the next president and former president, Donald J. Trump? How the hell did that happen? So Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, they get into the FBI. Then, I think a few months later, they do an interview on Fox News, and they claim, nothing to see here. Nothing suspicious happened. We can't talk about it because there's a trial. It's like, well, first off, there's a trial for the second would-be Trump assassin, but there's no trial for the first guy that we're talking about because he's fucking dead. And the second thing is, what do you mean there's nothing there? We just want to know more about I'm not saying there was a conspiracy from the government to kill Trump, but there's clearly more information that you guys know that you haven't told us yet. Again, we want to know how the hell was he able to get on the roof? What's his backstory? Was there signs of violence that people missed? What the hell happened here? Who is this kid? And stonewalled. They don't give us anything. We're talking about Trump's people now. And they say that there's nothing to see, really. But then Tucker Carlson releases this new information yesterday and shows that both the Biden FBI and the Trump FBI have been lying about Thomas Crooks. He did have an online presence. And what the online presence show, and I played a clip, Tucker went over it a little bit, but what it shows is that at first he was seemingly a right-winger, which makes sense. He did live in a rural county in Pennsylvania. He's white. You could understand how he could maybe grow up a Trump supporter. But as Tucker says in the clip I played, he became the shift and became a left-winger. And he was someone who was continuously espousing, violent rhetoric online, in YouTube comments at the very least, which is what we only have now, because that's the only access that Tucker was able to get. But in these YouTube comments, it shows this dude was threatening to kill not just Trump, but many public officials, Democrats and Republicans. And the FBI didn't pick up on any of this. It's a little weird. And again, Thomas Crooks was able to fly a drone at the rally site for about 11 minutes. And according to the government, the anti-drone technology that they had at that event was down, coincidentally, at that time. That's a little weird. The one roof that wasn't being surveilled by the Secret Service was the roof that Thomas Crooks was able to get up on. Again, just with the fact that there was no one on that roof was just very suspicious. You had police people telling Secret Service that Thomas Crooks was a suspicious person, but then they just lost track of Crooks at the rally. Again, there's just so much weird. And then I think they cremate Thomas Crooks' bodies 11 days after the assassination attempt. There was no purpose of doing that so quickly. The Congress can't now do their own investigation of Crooks' body because the body doesn't exist anymore. There's just a lot of weird information going on with Crooks. And the fact that the FBI is still pretending as if there's nothing more to learn is just very strange. And according to Tucker, Tucker went to the FBI and asked if they could validate the authenticity of these YouTube posts that Tucker got from a source. And it was clearly him. I mean, there was video clips it was his channel that these comments were coming from, because the same channel had videos of him shooting a gun, by the way. But the FBI still pretended, we don't know if these are authentic. How do you know they're authentic, Tucker? It's like, well, why? It's clearly his YouTube channel. There's videos of himself on it. What are we doing here? I thought Trump's FBI was supposed to be more transparent, especially when it comes to someone who tried to assassinate Trump himself. It's like, what are we doing here, folks? It's just bizarre that Tucker Carlson has to be the guy that gives us more information about this Thomas Crooks guy. Now, I think the reason why the Biden administration didn't want to release this information is it does show that Crooks became an anti-Trump left-winger, particularly in 2020. According to Tucker Carlson, 2020 is when these YouTube comments become very anti-Trump. He calls Trump supporters, idiots, that they're just sheep, and says that Trump's basically an idiot. He becomes an anti-Trumper. So he wasn't a right-winger, he became a left-winger. At one point he was a right-winger, that seems to be clear, because he was talking about trying to kill, the squad, Ilhan Omar, AOC. So at one point he does seem like he was a left-winger. But then COVID happens and he shifts, he was a right-winger, but then COVID happens, he shifts to the left, he becomes a left-winger. And that's probably why the Biden administration didn't want to admit that, because they didn't want to help Trump's chances in the 24 election. The idea that a left-winger nearly assassinated Trump, that was just going to not be good for the Democrats politically. But then why is the Trump administration not releasing this information that they have? That's what doesn't quite make sense to me. And when you take that into account, you take into account the fact that there were all these lapses in security at the actual rally, it does make you a little suspicious of what the hell actually happened at this rally. Was there a conspiracy to get Trump by people in the deep state? And now the people running these deep state organizations are protecting it, even Trump officials? It raises the question. So, anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on that. I wanted to play the clip. Please go check out Tucker's video on this. It's on his YouTube channel. I think it's also in podcast form. Please check it out and support Tucker Carlson. He's been getting all this shit from the Israel First crowd. It's really important we defend Tucker and support Tucker. So please check it out. And yeah, very weird. The whole thing is very weird and suspicious. What exactly who this Thomas Crooks guy was, and why people in the government seemingly do not want us to know more information. So anyway, let's get to the last topic.